Uh, my name is Tom Iwinski. I'm the gentleman with the picture on the right of your screen, and I'll be presenting with my colleague, Dr. Anil Kulkarni. He's the gentleman on the left.
Hi, I'm Anil Kulkarni.
And we're going to be giving a presentation on enhancing student engagement with the blended and online courses using clickers, which are small little handheld devices, and also for the online students that we engage, we use embedded questions in a on-demand video. The student engagement is how we interact with the students. We have a model for teaching where we have resident students and we do lecture capture as we're teaching to resident students. And then those videos we record in lecture capture, we allow the online students to view that and for them to engage with the questions we ask in class. We embed the questions in the video for the students to respond to. One thing that we would ask is that at the end of our presentation, we're going to have some time for questions and answers. And if you have any questions as we're going through the presentation, there's a text field in your, I guess it's the control panel for the GoToWebinar interface, and you're welcome to type your questions in at any time. And then at the end of the presentation, we will review those questions and respond to them.
Okay, so why are we doing this, right? Just take a look at the question that you have, and the poll is open right now. Register your answer.
Yes, and the poll is for us to simulate how we embed questions in our videos. This isn't as on-demand video, but we're kind of giving that simulated experience. And also in the resident classes where we have the students in front of us, the clickers are for the students to actually engage and respond to us. The clickers typically are for doing multiple choice, and so we have a multiple choice question here. You can respond to the poll. Can we open up our interface and see if it shows us any responses coming in?
Do you see it?
Okay, so in the audience view, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
So we need to click this to see the poll results. There we go. I think it's that one. Sridhar, where would we see the poll results on our interface?
Yeah, I'm sharing them right now. On the right, there should be a bar with poll on it. But if you maybe minimize your presentation.
Okay, yeah. So what do we click on?
Do you see it?
We see a pop-up box saying sharing poll results.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But we don't actually see the results of there's selections for A, B, C, D, or E.
I think, Sridhar, you want to hide the poll results before to enable the screen viewing.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can. Oh.
Open that back up and see. Well, we're not exactly sure where the results.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So polls here. Yes. Okay. So as you can see, we have received this correct response. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. Obviously, I mean, all of you.
We have to click on the screen.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there.
Okay. So this is the correct answer, and obviously all of you got it correct. The idea is to get everyone to participate in a question. So let me give you some background as to why do we do this. Just imagine your days when you're a student. You were sitting in a class of maybe 50 students around you. The professor is talking about some dry engineering subject. It is obviously not as exciting as some movie going on, Star Wars or your favorite movie going on. So there is the professor is kind of monotonously talking about some thermodynamics, and you listen to it for a while, and after about 5 to 10 minutes, your mind starts drifting. You look outside of the window, and if it's today's student, maybe they slowly take out their phone and start browsing, maybe look at some Facebook SMS messages and all that, and soon they are kind of they don't know what's happening. Now, if that happens, basically we are losing the primary objective here of engaging them, engaging all of us in teaching and learning process. So the research shows that the typical attention span of today's student is somewhere between 6 and 10 minutes. And the idea is, and since there are too many distractions, especially now, the idea is to keep the students interested in the lecture and at least make them watch it and understand it. So we use clicker technology for that.
Yes, and the clickers that we use in the resident classes when we have students in front of us are actually small devices. They look like a small remote control that's on your screen now. It's the blue device. We have it next to a iPhone for size comparison, and it communicates to a receiver that the instructor has, typically on his computer, that accepts the responses from the students. So each student has their own clicker, and when a question is presented in the classroom, they will select one of the multiple choice responses from A through E. And we're doing this while we're capturing the lecture for video for online students to view later. The online students, when they engage in those same questions, because they're embedded in the lecture delivery, we capture their input through embedded questions. And that would be very similar to the poll that you just took previously, whereas the question is presented, you give a response, there is some feedback, and the instructor, teacher can then go through that feedback. For the clicker questions, the students can only do multiple choice responses. When we present the embedded questions, we allow the embedded questions can actually accommodate multiple choice, matching, and short answer questions.
Okay, so I use clickers in my class. I teach thermodynamics, and there are various reasons why I do that. Typically, when the lecture begins, the students are still drifting in, slowly talking to each other, and so on. They have to know that the lecture has started, and we are serious about now presenting a seminar, or lecture. So, at the start of the lecture, I ask them so-called wake-up questions. I ask a simple question, just like what you saw earlier, and that kind of grabs their attention. And because everyone has to answer the question, they know they have the clicker in front of them, and they answer the question. Well, I also use that to check attendance. Now, you must have seen students, some of the students habitually come little like 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late. If you give points, if you use the clicker feedback to for a small amount of grade, say 5% of the course grade is given to the clicker responses, the students know that they have to come there and click on the clicker right in the beginning of the class, so they get kind of used to coming on time and starting the seminar. Well, once the lecture goes on, throughout the lecture, every 10 or 15 minutes or so, I ask a question. Now, it serves a couple of purposes. Well, one I already said, it kind of grabs their attention and brings them back if they're drifting, if their mind is drifting away from the topic. And the other is that there is always some student, when an instructor asks a question, a few students, if at all, raise their hands. When I was a student, I basically looked down because I didn't want to be picked by the professor to answer the question. But still, I wanted to answer the question, but for the fear of failing, for the fear of making a mistake, I didn't volunteer anything. But I wanted to participate, and clicker makes everyone feel participated. Everyone's answer is registered on, and we will show you how we handle that a little later. And then at the end of the lecture, we use clicker question as a quick review of what's happening in the class. Tom?
And to follow up with that, the clicker questions used in class then get repurposed and used again for the online students. And instead of verifying attendance, as you could use the clickers in the resident class, we use that to actually verify that the students are watching the videos. You could create an online course that has videos for students to watch, but you don't necessarily know if they're actually opening the videos and watching them through. When we embed questions where we track the students' engagement in the online video, we can verify if they're answering the wake-up questions or if they're engaging in the follow-up questions that we ask every so many minutes through the video. And the data we get back from the server that tells us when the students open the video and also what their responses are, then we can, in the exact same way we do for the resident classes and the clickers, we can grade their embedded questions in the video. The other thing that the clickers can also help do is kind of track student academic integrity and their honesty. If you have a small enough class, you can do a simple head count, so you can see maybe if there's 24 students in your class. Or if you, in front of you, if you ask a clicker question and you find out that there's 26 questions responded, or 26 students responding, you will find out that maybe somebody has their friend's clicker in their pocket.
Yeah, that's a good point. So this is an example of an actual clicker question that I asked in my class. As I said, this is a thermodynamics class, and I understand that your backgrounds are quite different. You may be from electrical, mechanical, computer science, IT, or whatever. But let's just look at this question and look at the philosophy behind it. The idea here is that there is what is equilibrium. I'm teaching the students what is equilibrium, and when something is when the temperature is changing, pressure is changing, phase is changing, whatever, then there is no equilibrium. And I have questions like that. So, Sridhar is...
Yeah. Sridhar, open up the poll where you can respond to this. And I myself, this is Tom speaking, I'm an instructional designer by trade, so I'm not an engineer. And oftentimes I don't have the subject matter expertise to know the correct responses. So in this case, I'm going to take a guess, and my guess on this one would be B.
Yeah, and remember, just don't feel shy, because in fact my grading policy of clicker question is that if somebody answers the question correctly, they get 4 out of 4. If they answer incorrectly, they get 3 out of 4. That means 75% marks, which is still a good score. And but if they don't answer, they get 0 out of 4. So it's always best to answer something. The idea is that if your mind is drifting, again, it makes you kind of come back and look at the question, read it, and answer something. So um, let's close the poll. Okay, how do we check the poll again?
He's showing the poll results.
Okay.
If you have to click on that, does it?
I think the results are somewhere here. Sridhar, are we? Hello?
Should I close it?
Yes, yes, close it, please.
Yes.
Okay, and we now want to take. How do we look at the poll?
On the side, should be towards the bottom of the page, 1 or 2 bars above the control panel, right above questions, if you're on a PC.
Yes, where is it?
Above questions. So
Oh, where the attendees, it says questions.
Yeah, there should be a bar called polls.
We don't see it yet. Can the audience see our screen?
Yes.
Do we need to close the screen to look at the poll?
No, you should be seeing it in the control panel.
I see. Above questions, it says attended 17 out of whatever. Dashboard.
Okay. It should be there because you're also an organizer.
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't really matter. You can. I don't want to waste time.
And we're doing this as an example.
This is an example.
We would see the results that the students responded to, and then as like an interim feedback, provide those students say that the students responded. Most of the students in this case in the live class responded 73% that it was answer B.
Yeah, so the first screen I get is that, okay, this is the response of students. They don't know yet which is correct answer. And then the correct answer is B. It is highlighted in green. And then what I see, let's say I'm talking about equilibrium. I'm teaching this class, and I see, okay, well, more than 70%, about 3/4 of the students got it correct. At that point, I say, okay, well, then the concept is generally understood. If somebody didn't understand, I tell them, come back and see me during my office hours or whatever, but I continue with the lecture at this point.
This is now an example where we would take a question that had been delivered in a live class with the clickers, and now we recreate that question and it shows up in the online on-demand video as a pop-up box that has options for the students to select. So
the question quickly says that if you dip ice and block of iron of same size in water, which one will have better buoyant force? And obviously the answer here is that they both experience the same buoyant force, because buoyancy depends on the volume. It doesn't depend on the density of the substance. So,
and well, once the students respond to that, and they'll be doing this not synchronously all at the same time, because these are for the online students to respond to. So you'll have a assigned on-demand video for a given lecture that the students complete during the week. some students may be responding to this question on Monday or Tuesday. Some students may be responding to it later in the week and at different times of the day. But because they're responding to it on the computer, it's being recorded on a server, and we get similar results that we can review as far as the students.
Yeah, and these students, like I said, when I teach online, these students are all over the world. Basically, the videos are shown online in different countries, and they watch it at different times. So after this is what happened in my class, in my real class, and I saw that only 24% of the students got it correct. The correct answer here is C, and 24% of the students got it correct. That means I know that I haven't done a good job of explaining what is buoyancy. I should perhaps present it in different way, change the language, and change the way I'm talking about it. And so at this point, I go back in a resident class and explain the point, because I don't want to lose 75% question and go on with the topic.
Yes, and the next screen shows the daily feedback. Because the student responses are actually being tracked by a server from where they receive the online video from, we can get feedback on the students' engagement on a daily basis to gauge where they're at. That data can also be viewed from a weekly basis, how they've worked through the week, and also at the end of the semester, we can cumulatively look at all of the students' performance information. And also, regarding feedback in this presentation, if you do have any questions for Dr. Kulkarni or myself, please feel free to type your questions into the GoToWebinar interface, and we'll address your questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, so far when we showed the questions, they were all pre-formatted. I typed them up, and when I'm teaching, I pop up a question and I ask them to take out their clickers and answer the question. But sometimes when I'm teaching, and I write on a blackboard. Of course, it's an electronic blackboard, and students actually see what I'm writing like this. And I'm asking a question that inside this dome there is some state, and I decide, okay, well, did the student understand or not? I want to ask a question there right away. It just comes impromptu on the fly. So I can write up the question, tell them to pull out their clickers and ask the question, and this way also it works. Obviously, in a resident class, it won't work, but the students are going to watch this tape exactly the way it is. So
in the live class, the instructor has the ability to either do pre-formatted questions or ad hoc questions, where he actually just writes the questions live and then asks for the response on the clickers, the multiple choice. For the embedded questions for the online students, there's an additional step where to begin the videos, the students need to actually authenticate into the video by giving their first and last name and an email address. That gives us one way of tracking their performance. So in this case, we show you an example of the login screen, and you can see where I've typed in my name and my email address. That goes into the database and tracks all of my interactions through the delivery of this video. One of the options that we have for the students, you see that the primary method is to watch the video and take the quiz. But if the students are using the video as a review because they want to go back and go through some of the content again, and they don't necessarily want to take the quiz again, they also have another button where they could actually watch the video and not take the quiz. It's just it gives them the ability, if they want to anonymously go through, though they will not receive credit at that point because we're not going to have any tracking ability.
Yeah, and again, since we give very generous amount of credit for simply even replying the question for giving an answer, we give 75%, giving a correct answer 100%. The students want to, in the first time, you take the quiz, second time they may not take the quiz.
Excuse me. The data collection can be pretty robust in the types of information. It'll record the time in which the students engaged, their responses, and obviously you've seen from the bar charts and the graphs that are produced, give a variety of ways in which this data can be sorted. In both cases, whether it's the clicker questions or the embedded questions that we're tracking from online, that produces spreadsheet files that then can be sorted, and we can calculate averages across students. And when you get to the end of the semester and we've actually reported student performance grades, we can actually correlate students that have done more engagement with the clicker questions and more engagement with the embedded questions to the quality of their grades.
Okay, so this is what happens in my resident class, the live class. We get the student data report. This is actually, in this particular case, I was just playing with the sticker, and this was these first two lectures were just before the semester began. So the number of students is 1 here. In reality, they're going to be the number of students is going to be 30 in the class. But I wanted to check what kind of report I get, and if I ask correct question, incorrect questions. So basically, how many questions asked, how many points available. Oops, yeah, okay. So this is the kind of response I get. Once that is done, I get cumulative response now. And here I have, these are the names of different students, student 1, student 2, etc. These are the entire class. This is a small part of the report. We have blocked the names for privacy. And for each student, it gives me average for this the entire session. Maybe there were 7 questions asked. Some of those the students didn't want to answer for whatever reason. Their responses are given, and I get pretty good idea of what's happening with the student in a given lecture. The lecture itself was presented here. You can see on the 6th of June here.
So the clicker questions and the embedded questions give us some pretty robust, detailed information. And some of that information is in like a spreadsheet with column data. Others can be presented in graphical form. The embedded questions that the data is collected on the server, that presents a similar style of feedback. You can see also in this one we're hiding the identities of our students engaged, but we can see that it tells us how much the students have watched in the video. So this student only watched 60% of the video and got a relatively low percentile score, whereas other students who have watched more.
Is a top student here.
Yes. That student didn't answer any correct questions, so they have a low percentile.
This is bottom, yeah. And actually here also it shows exact start time. In fact, when we get all the data, we know it to the second. When did the student start, when the student stopped, how many times they did that, and so on. We have complete data collection there.
Yes. And so this is an example of some graphical display of the student engagement. So in this lecture, we had, of the students that engaged, we see that many of the students got the answer correct. So that means that the instruction was viable and that the students were learning from it. And that there's also a bar chart that gives some more detail about student performance.
Okay. So what we are trying to do here is to basically do little better than what we conventionally do. Now, in the resident class, this is not a new technique. It has been around for about 5 to 10 years. There's a huge amount of research that has been done over thousands of students in physics and engineering classes, and it is basically what it shows is that hands down clickers are so much more effective in making the students learn the topic, which is the primary objective here. And the instructor should do whatever they can to make this process go smoothly. So in resident classes, it has been shown that it's very good. Obviously, when you switch to online classes, there is no excuse for not having personal interaction. So what we decided was that how can we translate this technology into the clicker technology into online courses, and that's what we did here. Something different. It's the technology itself can be more expensive. There are alternatives for it. The clickers means for clickers, every student has to buy a clicker. The clicker costs somewhere around $35, which is not much, but at Penn State they use it for 4 years in all different types of classes. So it's really very small investment for them, and they can resell it for maybe $5 less at the end of when they stop using. But still, there's other infrastructure that is needed. One other possibility is that this poleverywhere.com software, you can download the app on the phone, and it is not difficult. We use this in our faculty meetings whenever there is some kind of voting to be done. We just pull out our mobile phones. This is done via completely mobile phones, so pretty much everyone has it, so there are other alternatives available than clicker.
Yes, and the expense is still relatively minor compared to the overall cost of the course and the delivery. So for the embedded questions, you have the expense of software to edit in the questions into the online video. In the course that we're using as example, the software we use is called Camtasia, where we have the video that was captured of the lecture capture, and then Camtasia in its video editing allows you to insert those quiz questions in the timeline of the video, and it requires the students, when they play the video up to that point, the video stops, and then they have to select to engage that content.
Yeah, and by the way, on online for online education, as I said, since the students can be far away, we still have office hours where they can call in or they can Skype and talk to us. So there are other ways, of course, we keep them engaged.
Yep.
Okay, to quickly summarize what we are doing here, we are using these clickers and creatively to transform them into embedded questions for online delivery here. We basically record all the interaction. We know exactly what the student is doing. Even though they're watching on Sunday somewhere far away, we know what time they started the video, what time they stopped. And basically we try to keep them engaged so that they learn more material.
So the clickers are the interface we use for the student engagement in the resident audience when they're in front of us. And when we capture that video and we want to recreate the fidelity of that experience for online students, for the distance students, we use the embedded questions. And often the clicker questions and the embedded questions for the students are exactly the same. It is possible, though, if we record the video with clicker questions, we can actually add additional embedded questions for the online students that we realize maybe we want to reinforce one topic or an idea to a greater degree. So it's a creative use of modern instructional technologies that is used in a resident classroom, and that's because of this, the same content is being repurposed for an online course. We can get very similar feedback and data about the students' engagement online.
So this is completely unrelated. The organizers told me to say a few things about what we are doing right now. This recently, Penn State, our university, which is a very big university, we have more than 100,000 students, so it's one of the top couple of universities in terms of size, and also we are in top 40 worldwide. So we have started recently a Center for Collaborative Engagement with the Pune University. We have actually an office, physical office in India, and the idea is not just to recruit students from we basically give them some technology or whatever, take it from India or give it back to India or whatever. The idea is to promote true collaboration between the Pune University and Penn State, and it's at all different levels, students, faculty. It's in the form of exchange. It's online education, and of course research projects. Currently, we just completed a round of collecting collaborative development projects. We had several faculty members from Penn State and several from Pune turn in individual proposals, and we are looking at those to fund some of those for future collaborative activity. This is, as I said, I'm doing this only because I was told by the organizers to do this.
So that concludes our presentation on the use of clicker questions in resident instruction and then repurposing them for online instruction. If you have questions for us, if you can type them into the GoToWebinar interface, and then we'll respond to those questions. If you'd like to communicate with Dr. Kakarni or myself, our emails are on the screen. You're welcome to send us direct questions. We'll gladly respond and give you any feedback or information that we have as far as how we use this technology, or if you have a specific question about what we've presented here today.
Or if you have some idea about improving.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
mentioned it. Yeah. To how we can do better use of clickers and so on. So thank you for having you here.
Let's open up the Sridhar, were there any questions that were given earlier?
No questions yet. I'm running the first poll.
We can put up our own.
Yes. Yep. We have a few more examples of
our own.
Yes. So I'm going to put up the first poll question we have as far as that we could ask of our audience.
Yes. Yeah, the results, 29% in mechanical and 71% in computers.
Oh, 21% mechanical and 71% computers.
Yes.
Okay. You can see the screen, right?
Yes.
All of you? Okay.
So that's we were just curious as to the background of some of the audience members and what they bring to the table as far as what their how they might think of using these clicker questions. Could you display the second poll question?
Yes, it's running.
Personally, my experience is the clickers, what is embedded questions? They really enhance the student engagement, their attendance and their uh, watching or listening to the class, feeling participated, it tremendously increases. And all it takes is a little small device or some technology. Polleverywhere.com is, by the way, it's a pretty low cost, very effective technology that we use ourselves. We didn't talk about it, but in the faculty meetings.
Okay. Do we have any results from that second poll question?
Yeah, the custom technologies, none, 13%, computer and projector, 100%, clickers, 0, interactive lab activities, 13%, learning management systems, 25%.
Okay. But that question actually kind of gives us a feel for if you have the ability to maybe adopt these technologies for some of your teaching.
So this was 100%, right?
B.
Because to employ these technologies, the clicker questions, you do need to have the computer and the projection technology so that you can project the questions to the students and then also display their feedback. The learning management system helps because then you can assign the videos and have those selected for the students to view and engage in the embedded questions it would have in it.
Okay, and finally.
So could you put up the final poll question we have?
Yes.
And this question relates to the clicker questions can work in small classes or large classes, as well as the embedded questions. We've used them in our resident classes where there may be 20 students in front of you, and we have also running the embedded questions on our online classes where we have up to 400 students in a course.